The letter and the stranger. The wind swept across the endless Montana plains, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and dust. The sun hung low, painting the horizon in copper and gold. From the porch of his ranch house, Elias Turner, a tall, broad-shouldered man with eyes the color of weathered wood, stared at the trail that cut through the valley. For nearly 5 years, Elias had lived alone on the Double T Ranch, ever since his parents had passed and his younger brother had gone east to seek city life. Elias stayed. The land was in his blood, harsh, quiet, and honest. But lately, the silence had become too heavy. The laughter that once filled the house was gone, and the long evenings stretched endlessly. One spring evening, after another meal eaten in solitude, Elias had written a letter. It was short, plain, and sincere. To the lady willing to share a quiet life on the frontier. I'm a rancher with steady means, a small herd, and a good home. I ask for kindness more than beauty, honesty more than riches. If you can find comfort in open skies and simple living, write back. E. Turner, Clearwater, Montana Territory. He sent it through an agency that arranged mail-order marriages. He had no idea if anyone would answer. Weeks passed. Then, one morning, a reply arrived. It was written in soft cursive on delicate paper. Dear Mr. Turner, your words spoke to a heart that has known both joy and sorrow. My name is Lydia Holt. I am a widow, 28 years of age, and I have 5 children. My husband died 2 years ago in a mining accident in Colorado. Life has been hard since, but I still believe in building a home and offering love. If my being a mother does not deter you, I would come to Clearwater with gratitude. Sincerely, Lydia Holt. Elias had read that letter a dozen times. A widow and 5 children. It wasn't what he expected, but something in her words, strength, humility, courage, stirred him deeply. He wrote back simply, You and your children will have a home here, Mrs. Holt. The door will be open. And so, after many weeks of waiting, the day came. The noon sun shimmered as a stagecoach rumbled toward the ranch yard, wheels creaking, dust billowing. Elias stood by the hitching post, hands resting on his belt buckle, heart thudding. The door swung open. First came a boy of about 12, serious-eyed and protective, clutching his small sister's hand. Then another girl and 2 smaller boys. Finally, the last passenger, a woman in a faded blue dress and wide straw hat, stepped down. Lydia Holt looked different from what Elias had imagined. Not frail, not timid. Her posture was straight despite exhaustion, her brown hair pulled back neatly. There was a weary grace in her face, the kind that comes from enduring too much and still standing tall. Elias touched his hat. Mrs. Holt. She nodded. Mr. Turner, it's good to finally meet you. He took her carpet bag, glancing at the children clustered behind her. You've had a long road. The house is just over that rise. You'll be wanting rest. As they walked toward the ranch house, the youngest boy, no more than 4, tugged at Elias's sleeve. Mister, do you got cows? Elias smiled for the first time in months. I got plenty of cows. Maybe you'll help me feed him one day. The boy grinned, and Lydia's eyes softened. That night, after a meal of beans and fresh bread, the children fell asleep in a spare room. Lydia stood by the window, watching the stars stretch endlessly above the plains. Elias joined her, hat in hand. I reckon this isn't what either of us expected, he said quietly. No, she admitted, but sometimes the good Lord sends what we need, not what we plan. The room fell silent, filled only with the crackle of the fire and the chirp of crickets outside. For the first time in years, Elias felt the house breathe again, alive, warm, and filled with life. Winds of change. The weeks that followed were a test of patience, courage, and quiet discovery. Lydia rose before dawn each morning, tending to the children, baking bread, and helping wherever she could. She was not afraid of work. She gathered eggs, swept floors, and even learned to milk a cow. The children took to ranch life quickly. The older boy, Samuel, helped Elias mend fences and drive the cattle, while little Rose, the youngest girl, followed Lydia everywhere like a shadow. Still, there were moments of unease. Elias wasn't sure how to act around a woman after so many years alone. He respected Lydia, admired her strength, but hesitated to show it. She, too, kept her distance, polite, grateful, but careful. One evening, a storm rolled across the plains. Thunder cracked over the hills, and wind howled against the walls. The children huddled close as rain lashed the windows. Elias stoked the fire, his rough hands steady despite the chaos outside. When a shutter blew open, Lydia rushed to help him secure it. The wind whipped her hair loose, and rain drenched them both. Elias pulled the window closed and turned to find her looking at him, laughter trembling on her lips. "For all your talk of being prepared, Mr. Turner," she teased, "you've a leaky window and a wild storm for company." Elias chuckled. "Reckon I needed someone to help me hold it together." For a heartbeat, the world seemed to still. The firelight flickered across their faces, and something unspoken passed between them, an understanding, gentle and real. Days turned into months. The fields turned green, calves were born, and the ranch thrived. Lydia's presence had changed everything. She sang while she worked, told bedtime stories by lamplight, and filled the home with warmth that Elias hadn't known he'd missed. But gossip spread fast in Clearwater. Some townsfolk whispered that Elias had taken in a widow and her brood out of pity, others that it wasn't proper. When he heard it, Elias said nothing, but it stung. One Saturday, Lydia overheard two women at the general store whispering cruelly. "Poor thing," one said. "He only took her in cause no one else would." That night, Lydia sat on the porch, tears glinting in her eyes. Elias joined her quietly. "I didn't mean to bring trouble to your name," she murmured. He looked out over the fields, where the last light of day faded into purple dusk. "You didn't. Folks talk when they got nothing better to do. Let him." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "You didn't expect me, Elias. I wasn't the bride you ordered." He met her gaze steadily. "No, you weren't. But maybe you're the one I needed all along." Her breath caught, and for a moment, words failed them both. Then, from inside, a small voice called out, "Mama, the fire's low," and she smiled through her tears. Weeks later, in early autumn, the local pastor came to the ranch. The sky was wide and blue, the air crisp with the scent of hay. The children stood beside their mother, faces bright with joy. Elias, wearing his cleanest shirt and that nervous smile of his, took Lydia's hand before the preacher and said, "I didn't send for a wife with 5 children, but the Lord sent me a family, and I'll cherish them all my days." Lydia's eyes glistened. "And I, Elias Turner, thank heaven for the man who saw not burden, but blessing." The preacher smiled, and the vows were spoken. When the ceremony ended, Samuel ran up and hugged Elias's leg. "Does that mean you're our pa now?" Elias knelt and ruffled the boy's hair. "Reckon it does, son." The plains wind carried laughter across the ranch yard, children chasing chickens, Lydia's voice calling them in, and Elias's low chuckle mixing with the sound of the open land. The Double T Ranch, once silent and empty, now echoed with life, warmth, and love. And every sunset thereafter, as Elias watched Lydia standing in the golden light with the children playing nearby, he knew the letter he had written hadn't brought him what he expected. It had brought him home.